Hello, everyone, and welcome. Happy National AI Literacy Day to educators and students and leaders and EdTech leaders joining us from across Canada and beyond. I'm Robert Merdlacci, founder and CEO of Mindshare Learning and C21 Canada. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this very special National Teacher Webinar, Canada's Schools of the Future AI Student for Wellbeing Challenge. Today marks an exciting pre-launch moment for our 18 Schools of the Future initiative, and we're thrilled to have you with us. This year's challenge places students at the center of innovation, inviting to explore how artificial intelligence can support student well-being, learning, and responsible use in education. We're especially proud to present this initiative with Dell Technologies, our lead sponsor, and Code to Learn, as well as our valued partner. Thank you for helping us bring this important national conversation to life. And today is just the beginning. We're also excited to share the official launch, online launch of the Canadian Schools of the Future for Wellbeing Challenge at the Dell Technologies Education Summit taking place this coming Tuesday. So, teachers, this is your invitation to join us early. Get inspired. Consider becoming a Mindshare Schools of the Future ambassador. As an ambassador, you can help lead this work in your school community, empowering student voice, innovation, and ethical AI use. Before we begin, please complete the short 2-minute survey at the end of today's webinar for awesome prizes, and including Amazon gift cards in my book that will be completed in the next month or so, Being Human in the Age of AI. And I'm going to ask our awesome intern, Amar Atia, who is a third-year computer science engineering, to pop up the first poll for educators. And so over to you, Amar. And we want to get a sense of your AI readiness. So please take a moment to complete the survey, and look forward to seeing those results in a moment. Okay, so one more moment. Okay, you just want to complete, and let's end the poll and share the results. So let's have a look here and stop sharing. Okay, thank you for that. So it's kind of all over the map. Stop sharing. Very good. Okay, so introducing our gathering. Today's session brings together a terrific panel of leaders in education, innovation, literacy, and student voice, what I believe is one of Canada's largest teacher gatherings focused on AI and well-being. Our goal today is to share ideas, practical insights, and a preview of what lies ahead for educators and students across the country. We're honored to be joined by outstanding group of speakers. Dr. Steve Jordan's a professor of psychology at the University of Toronto Scarborough. Dr. Jordan's is widely respected for his work on learning, memory, cognition, and the impact of digital technologies and how we think and learn. He's got his own EdTech startup, and he's created a digital twin for office hours that I'm sure he'll share with you. We have Unber Khan. Unber is a literacy instructional coach at the Peel District School Board and the Schools of the Future first prize winner with a strong commitment to student-centered and inclusive learning. Einavan Vinod is an awesome Peel District School Board that won our Canadian EdTech Startup Challenge at the Canadian EdTech Summit. He was a Dragon's Den winner, bringing a powerful student entrepreneurial voice to the equation. He's got an incredible startup that he will be telling us about, no doubt. And Michael Furtick, if he is in the house, and Michael Furtick, please join us. There he is. And Michael Furtick is the co-founder of Taking It Global and director of innovation, recognized as a leader, global leader in youth engagement, global collaboration, and digital innovation in education. Thank you for joining us, Michael. So with that, Dr. Jordans, I'm going to pass the baton to you. He will help us frame today's conversation and exploring how AI is reshaping student learning and thinking, the psychology of attention, focusing on digital well-being, and what educators need to consider as they navigate AI in the classroom. With that, over to you, Dr. Jordans.
Yeah, really great to be with you all today. I want to just assure you I am not responsible for that image of me. That is purely Robert. It looks absolutely nothing like me. I have no idea where that came from. It'll caution you all to always be careful when dealing with
Yeah,
AI. Make
well,
sure
look at
you
me.
review
It
the
gave me
product.
he gave me quite a bit of hair. I'm happy with
Yeah. Yeah, I've been, from the outset, I mean, even before this whole AI, generative AI acceleration that we're all experiencing now, I was trying to reshape education in various ways and trying to find ways of using technology effectively. And to be quite honest, it was a challenge because when the traditional system seems to be working okay, as it was then, it's really hard to kind of change and move the ship around, the big ship. So when AI hit, first of all, I naturally was looking for the opportunities. I know all of the challenges AI has brought to all of us, and they are significant. But it also provides opportunities, maybe to tackle some of the biggest challenges we have in education. And that's naturally where my mind goes anyway. But the other thing I loved about the acceleration of AI is it kind of broke the traditional approach. It's making it hard for us to do things as we used to. And that's really opening up people's minds to kind of considering innovative new approaches. So I kind of find myself energized by this, even though I know there's a big challenge. And I want to highlight, I think, three areas that I've been working in that I'll invite you to think about a little bit. The first one is, we're talking student support and well-being. When it comes to sort of interacting with students around the courses, Robert mentioned that I don't know if I'd call it a digital twin, but there's a virtual Steve, there's a virtual version of me that holds office hours for my students 24/7. And by the way, they like 2 in the morning. That's when they like to be interacting with the virtual me. I would never be there at 2 in the morning myself. He is. He's happy to answer questions. He can also do things I can't do, including things like give students questions. He can quiz them on what they should know, coming up with questions on the fly to kind of challenge them and to see if they know things. But talking about well-being, there's also an opportunity with these assistants, these digital assistants, to meet students where they are, especially if the interactions are anonymous, which they are with the virtual version of me. I noticed early on that students were asking questions like, I'm feeling kind of lonely at university. I thought I would have this social network, but I'm finding myself in my room, mostly alone. What am I doing wrong? And the AI would often give them very good advice, tell them about clubs and other resources on campus, push them in various directions about how they could find support. And we also noticed this around mental health kind of issues. And we realized that not only do these agents have the opportunity to be there for students when they're asking, but they also can be proactively, they can be created to proactively every now and then ask a question. How's your social life going? Are you making friends? And that can prompt the student to say, well, actually, not so much. And then we have the opportunity again to connect the student with resources. So I think there's options. These AIs are less intimidating than talking to a teacher or talking to a professor about some issue. And quite often, if they're properly created and if they're properly tested, and that's all really important, they can provide a whole new level of support for both student learning and student well-being. So that's when we kind of think of a virtual assistant, like a tutor. But two other areas I would invite you to think about. The second area I'm working a lot on is teamwork. We know how important social health is for the students. You're going to hear me talk a lot about friends. The best thing I can do for my students in the first year is help them find a friend. Social connection helps them deal with the stresses. It helps them succeed. It improves physical health. It improves mental health. It improves happiness. And so, how do we help students make friends? A lot of the research I've done is when you have teamwork working well, that's now where a lot of students are meeting each other. That's the place where they have to interact face to face. And therefore, there are the opportunities for forming trusting relationships. But of course, the problem is often teamwork doesn't go well. So could AI help here? And we've been playing with putting an AI in every team. In the teamwork things I do, that AI does two things. First, it's the eyes and ears of the teacher. So when the teacher wants to know what's going on in that group, the AI knows what's going on in that group. And when the students know that, things like social loafing and other things start to disappear, and we see better group dynamics taking place. But the AI can also be a project manager. It can also teach them how to negotiate the complexities of working with a team. It can give them advice when they run into challenges. It can be made to be an expert on group work, on teamwork. And so every team can have that expert on teamwork, at least early on, helping them negotiate. And I imagine a university where we gradually pull that expert away across the years. So it helps them, it scaffolds their learning early, but then eventually we're asking them to kind of manage that. But I think we can enhance teamwork, and that will enhance friendships, and that's great. And then the third thing I will have you think about, which is really what I'm very excited about, is getting back to oral assessments of learning. I have this phrase I like to say quite often now. I want to be, before I retire, I want to be the man that chisels the end date in the tombstone of multiple choice testing. I hate multiple choice testing. I want it dead and buried and gone. And I think with AI, we have an opportunity now to assess learning in a more holistic way, in a more fair way, and quite possibly in a more valid way, at least valid in terms of being sensitive to the things we value as educators. I think we can get assessment right. And I think if we get assessment right, then teaching to the test is a good thing because it's measuring the stuff we value. So I think it will drive innovation all through the education system. So I just offer those three examples as sort of optimistic things of how, this challenge that AI is bringing may also offer opportunities, may allow us to take some of the things that have been most challenging for us across the years and get them right. And that's what I'm really excited to do. So yeah, I've got a company called Talk Lab. We're also working with all sorts of entities, helping them sort of harness AI for optimal innovation. By the way, let me just express all of the AIs that I've been talking about are now conversational AIs. I want students having real-time conversations. I think text messaging has been a villain that's really impacted their communication skills in negative ways. And so I also love the idea of having them talk to the AIs all through. I can imagine ways of bringing that into the curriculum. Learn your physics from Isaac Newton. Have a chat with Isaac Newton, and then write a report about what you learned. So I see all sorts of opportunities, but I'll leave it there. That gives you a sense of what I have on the mind, and I'll turn it back to you, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jordans. What a thoughtful, timely, and such an important foundation for today's discussion. You reminded us that this conversation isn't just about technology, it's about people, purpose, and the kind of learning environments we want to create for students. And I love the notion of AI and talking to it. I often talk to my AI when I'm driving in the car, and it talks back to me, which is quite remarkable. Well, I'm going to ask Samar to advance the slides to just give a couple of perspectives on things. So our schools of the future, 18th year of the schools of the future, we pivoted from a teacher-focused challenge at the early stages back in the day to a more student-focused event, a challenge, and it's just a fascinating time to be in education, and we're giving out some awesome prizes, over $1 million given away, and aligning with sustainable goals number 3 and 4. And it's really about getting beyond pockets of innovation was the originally the concept. So with that, I'm going to move on to the next slide. There's where you can get more information from the QR code. And next slide. Folks, educators, kindly take a moment to complete the short survey there, and you'll qualify to win some awesome prizes brought to you by Taking It Global and Code to Learn. This is part of the overall Can Code initiative from the federal government. I'm honored to be meeting the AI minister later this afternoon on AI Literacy Day, appropriately. Minister Evan Solomon will be meeting with him downtown, and certainly share this and some of the work that we're doing to transform learning, ethically and responsibly. Next slide, please, Mark. Yeah, so that's a little bit about who we are in terms of Mindshare Learning, and we publish a report weekly that you can get free. We have our summit in the fall, and we have Mindshare TV, and we have a really cool AI initiative. If you advance the slide further, Amar, and that's our timeline. It's 25 years of Mindshare Learning. I can't believe it, but it's true. And the contest, but I wanted to show this slide of the C21 AI use case projects. And so the C21 AI use case projects are right there. We are now in phase 3 of the C21 AI use case projects. And you can go to c21.org to learn more about that. And now with that, we're going to launch another poll question before we move on to Michael Furtick will be the next step. That will be okay. So student well-being is very much the focus here today in the age of AI. There's a national initiative with Rogers on screen time. Evidently, research shows that students are averaging 5.2 hours a day on screen time. What do you think of that, Dr. Jordans? 5.2 hours a day, which if they're not spending time doing schoolwork, that's not going to get them honors standing, no doubt. Any thoughts on that screen time research from Rogers? We'll take another
Yeah,
moment.
I mean, I think the biggest thing isn't always so much how much time, but has that time been made contingent on them doing certain good things for their health, like interacting with other people in real time? And so often it's not. They just get the phone and they're allowed to use it anytime, anywhere. And I think that's underutilizing the power of the phone to help shape the behaviors that would really help their future.
Just a quick moment. Thank you for that. Just a quick summary of the student well-being. So biggest concern is around ethical use and digital citizenship. I couldn't agree more. So with that, thank you again, Dr. Jordans. Now let's get a brief perspective from the rest of the panel on Dr. Jordan's comments, if we can, before we pass it over to Michael for his thoughts. Michael.
Did you want me to go ahead and share now, Robert? I wasn't sure if you wanted to.
Just comments on Dr. Jordan's intro.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and hello from Winnipeg here. I'm excited to be joining. We're actually running a student coding hackathon, one of the last days here of Can Code 4.0. So we've got 100 students from all across Winnipeg learning about coding and AI, Indigenous histories, and music. We've got the snotty-nosed Reds kids in town performing for us shortly. I think from our perspective, we're kind of thinking about AI literacy in two ways. For students and for teachers, we think about students and our program, Your Voice is Power. This year at the AI for Good Summit, we actually launched 2 new lessons. And the idea is really to help students understand, not just use AI, because I think everyone's just jumping in using ChatGPT, but how does it actually work? And what are some of the kind of risks? And how can they play a more active role in using it thoughtfully? And I think especially this program, which is focusing on creativity, what does AI mean for creativity? And for example, for songwriting in the future. And so we've been trying to put together perspectives, in this case, from a number of Indigenous musicians and also kind of technologists to really reflect on, in particular, what AI means for creativity. Because I think we've all, you saw Robert's slide, we've generated our faces. Does it look accurate? Maybe, maybe not, but it's a tool that is allowing us to produce more creative content, whether those are photos, videos. This week, ChatGPT announcing they're shutting down their video tool because of the tremendous cost of compute, but there's still lots of alternatives out there. And then, of course, music. I'm not sure if people have used some of the tools like Sono, but people creating music out there. So, what does it mean to be creative in the future? So helping students explore that through these 2 Creative Commons licenses we've created. But when we think about the teachers we serve through our Connected North program, we're working with about 220 schools in the most remote communities in Canada, including every community in the Arctic. How do we equip those educators to both integrate Indigenous knowledge, but also customized learning. And this is where I think AI can be really powerful. We've been piloting an AI lesson tool for teachers that helps them customize a lesson idea based on both the Indigenous knowledge framework for the region. And we've worked with two Anishinaabe educators to help us train the AI prompting and the models on those knowledge frameworks, but also on the needs and interests of their students and even on the grade level. So I think it's, how can it help us do more, but not replace what we're already doing, necessarily? How can it help teachers, for example, customize learning to reach every student with their learning needs and their interests? But, even in my own life, it's been interesting with my son in grade 8 going to grade 9, you know, how do you use it as a sidekick, but not as a replacement for your thoughts? So here at Taking It Global and through our Code to Learn initiative and Your Voice is Power, our focus has really been trying to create tools and resources for students to know what AI is and how it works, not just to use it, but to understand it and understand what it's good for and what it's not and why it makes mistakes and the kind of biases and issues that it has. But also for teachers, our focus has really been on, and this is where I think the power is, how can it help them personalize learning in ways that they otherwise couldn't possibly do? And so we're seeing some really exciting progress on that that's helping the teachers in the integration of
Amazing.
different knowledges. So that's kind of been our focus
Amazing.
in our work, but I'm excited about how the conversation will continue.
Michael, thank you so much. And you've been an advocate for many years. He was a student entrepreneur back in the day, sold his first startup kind of in at, I
25
think
years ago, I think we started the same year, our organization. So
that's right. How old were you? 17 when you sold your first company or
something like that.
thereabouts?
16, I think, technically. Yeah, but yeah, 17.
No pressure, Vinavan. So with that, thank you so much, Michael. Umber, over to you. From a classroom perspective and literacy perspective, how do you see AI supporting student well-being and engagement in meaningful ways? How are the students doing? Congratulations on winning the Canada Schools of the Future Challenge this past year. You're doing remarkable work with your kids. I recall last year, kids created the smart city modeling, and it just the detail, the hands-on learning, the experience. To Dr. Jordan's point, they weren't filling out multiple choice tests to be assessed. I mean, this was real live, hands-on, visible learning. Over to you.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Anber Khan, working for PDSB. Thank you for that great introduction, Robert. I was just making notes as I was listening to Steve and Michael, some really good points that were mentioned. And when I think about my experiences in the last few years with intermediate grades, what really stood out for me, Steve, when you were talking about teamwork and giving those support systems available on how to find a friend, how to make a friend, how to build a social network. And you mentioned at university level, right? So I am seeing this from K-5, where a lot of my experiences has been, and now middle school, where students are very much struggling with social skills.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we start that at an earlier age and
Yeah.
use the support of AI, let's say, to have those real life conversations, to model that, to provide those hands on experiences live, and really prepare them at a younger age. I wonder the positive effects by the time they get to university. So I think that really stood out for me because I know a lot of times as teachers, we often say COVID years, right? This group of people have missed out on a lot because of COVID years. But really, we're able to reverse that. And in my experience, it has been coming up with authentic, creative learning opportunities that provide lots of entry points and meeting the kids where they're at to be able to involve them in every thought process of that learning journey. Right. So last year, it was through that Sustainable Cities project, and it took us 2 months to build that. And I'm going to be honest, I had to step back as an educator in the room and share that power, that learning culture with the students to really learn what is it that they want to do and have them drive that learning. And as educators, that sometimes can be difficult to do when you have a goal in mind, right? But that process really surprised our school educators, the feedback that we received from the students and the skills that were being built, and the critical thinking piece that was coming out of that through the use of innovation, through the use of creativity, was just phenomenal. So I had students say, I've never built something with my hands. So they really enjoyed, like, we bought these 3 by 4 plywood, and they got to build cities on there, and we incorporated a technology piece on there, such as spheros, such as climate kits and whatnot. So they've never had that experience, and they were just so interested because of those opportunities that they haven't been given before. So I really wanted to highlight that, and I think because they were so involved and they were leaders in their learning. When Robert had met them at our expo that we have through our board, they were doing presentations on their own. They were able to answer every question Robert and the walking guests had for them, right? So that itself, what I'm trying to say is, there are ways to reverse those social skills, those presentation skills, and that all goes back to the experiences that we provide. This year, I just want to really quickly touch base on. I'm very grateful for Mindshare and our partnership throughout, because this year I wanted to know, how can I cater to the community that I'm at this year. So I'm at a middle school again, and we are doing a entrepreneurship program. And that, to me, again, is, how do I build transferable skills for these students that will help them succeed in the real world, that will help them succeed in high school? So this entrepreneurship project started with 20 kids. I now have 60, and I'm actually meeting them today. And I would like to partner up with all of you, such mentors and such great experienced individuals, to really help these students see what they're capable of. Who are they becoming? I also have Vinavin here. I hope I'm saying your name right this time and not by your last name, right? Like, he inspired me, his group inspired me at the summit, because a small idea in a high school level turned into something so amazing. And here he is inspiring everybody, right? So I see these students being capable of doing all those things. So as of right now, I have 30 businesses that I'll be supporting. And we're in the process of, we've done our research. Now we're going to be building our prototype. And even just yesterday, we had a student that planned their prototype, but they were having a hard time, as it was really involving a 3D printer, which I don't know a lot about. So we did go into AI, and where we can support the students is how to use it appropriately, and help them come up with good prompts to be able to get the results that they need, right? So when we talk about authenticity and integrity of these things, there's a way to do it properly, right? And openly and explicitly modeling that, and telling the kids and learning with the kids, because I don't know a lot about AI. I'm still building my knowledge set and skill set. So really, being a learner with them, right? So that's where we're at right now, and hopefully at the end we're going to be having a live Dragon's Den theme, where all of you are invited if you would like, and to see
Absolutely.
where these kids end up, and how proud they are of their businesses, and the fact that during March break they were all researching, and they couldn't wait to come back after and show us and show their peers. It's been a very great experience, and I'm so proud of them to see how hard they're working towards something that means a lot to them. Because it goes beyond the classroom, it goes beyond the school. These are going to be perhaps someone's future, and their dream of doing well in these businesses. So thank you so much for that, and I'm looking forward to learning and discussing all these great ideas with all of you today.
Umber, thank you so much. So inspiring. Um, I'm personally happy to volunteer and mentor. I've done that for another educator in Toronto who's won our schools in the future in the past, Zelia Capeteo Tavares, in the Toronto District School Board. And she runs a business day. They spent 3 months. They touch on all the curriculum, and they have a showcase in the gym after. And I often will buy a lot of their wares and products that they produce. And they've gotten to the point where they're creating their own logos and T-shirts, and we're talking grade five kids, and sometimes as low as grade four. So, incredible inspiration. If you're a leader and you're not mentoring, you're not.
Oh, we've maybe lost our host. Have we lost our host? Perhaps we will. I don't know. I almost feel the need to take over the webinar now that we've lost Robbie. Let's see if he comes back in a second. If
The
not,
panel will hijack and take
yeah,
over.
the panel will hijack the webinar. Why not?
Meeting, right?
Oh,
It's
you're
about
back.
mentorship. Why don't you chime?
If I knew we could just mute him, then it would be easier. But he's going to jump back in and be in the middle of something.
I'm sure Robert was planning to throw it next to Vinivan.
Yeah, yeah. Why
Sorry, am
don't
I
we
saying
just?
your name right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we just throw to you, Vinavan, and tell your story, and let's rock and roll there.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
Come in.
first off, I just want to say, Amber, we
I'm
actually
back.
have done something similar in my middle school, and I think it's really important in the age of AI to have this kind of like hands-on experience and learn, because when you learn like when you do it hands-on, you have that experience and the knowledge to speak about it, which improves your social skills as well. But in terms of well-being, I do believe that like AI itself, it does help with pacing, like burnout, especially from pacing, because I come from a program where there's lots of students who have very different
Take
thinking
that
mindsets.
off.
Like some
Did
people
you?
think slowly but more in depth, while there's others
But
who
what's
are
going
more
on?
like, oh, I think Robert's back.
Robert's not. I was trying to find a way to mute him from distance so that he could grumble without interrupting us. But
There we go. He's muted now.
Yeah.
Continue.
But yeah, I think it's just about how some students think really fast, they go really high level, go really fast, while some students are slower, deeper thinkers. And so having one teacher in one classroom doesn't cover all those thinking styles, right? So using AI to pick up, like, match the student's pace and make sure that they don't get stuck and they have like support when they need it at their speed, it really helps in classrooms.
Cool. I don't know. Now he's completely gone. So the question is, are we still live? I guess we have 22 people still here. Looks like we're still live. So what was what was your startup that won? Can you give a little more details on that?
Yeah, so we're building a platform. It is an engagement platform where we take the time that students use on TikTok, Instagram, things like that, doom scrolling, and we turn that into proper educational, I guess, learning time, I guess you could say. Because what we do is we let students upload their textbooks, notes, things like that, and it can then we use our AI systems to turn that into into a couple short form videos that students can scroll through and learn.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Are you back, Robert?
I believe I'm back.
I believe you're back. So we just, in your absence, Vinavan has just sort of been telling us his story and a little bit about what his startup was about. So I think we got that covered.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's open up to a open discussion here. Let's go a little deeper. How can AI help create learning environments that are not only more personalized, but also supportive of student well-being? We talk about personalized learning. And what I find fascinating is when I ask students in high school how they're being assessed, it's pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
It's pen and paper for everything. And we talk about personalized learning and dashboards, and how does this work? How is it impacting their well-being when they're having to go back to, to when I was in high school with pen and paper, and we're advancing, but it impacts your mindset from that perspective. But talk to me, Steve, about how students are evolving and how they work and learn in your world, because I visited one of your first lectures in that beautiful Rotunda lecture hall, and every student, I took a photo, and you were orating in the center court, and every student had a laptop open, and they were taking notes, and they were, multitasking.
Mhm.
Talk to me about how that's evolved, and you know, what's
Yeah.
the right balance, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for a long time, and we've talked about the attention economy for a long time. For educators, you are competing, and so we've gotten some of the devices out of the schools and such, but certainly at universities, the devices are there with a vengeance. And so when you teach, there's many other things that are pulling students' minds in various directions, and so that does require us as educators to compete. For lack of a better term, to be able to up our engagement game, to show the relevance. So using more like interactive tools in classrooms, for example. So if they have a phone in their hand, let's use that phone for learning. Let's have some polls come up. Let's use those polls to initiate discussions. We have a simple, by the way, like in that rotunda Robert talked about. It's a 500-seat lecture theater all around me as I teach, but the furthest student away is 8 desks away. And that design alone means I can make eye contact very regularly with all the students, and it makes it a little less likely they pick up their phones. I can, see them directly in their eyes. They can see me. I can see them looking at their phones. And that alone has sort of created a nice vibe. But I think when it comes to AI, and especially AI literacy, this has been a real challenge for students. Like at university, they can go from one class to another, and they can be in my class, and I'm very pro AI, and I'm teaching them how to work with AI on projects and to use it to do things. They can go to the next class, and they can hear, if you touch AI, you are in trouble. AI is considered, just something that's a cheating device, so to speak. And so I think helping students kind of understand what AI is and isn't, helping educators understand what AI is and isn't, and how to use it right. Doing things like focusing on process rather than product. So more and more where it's less about what they submit in the end and more about them telling us about the journey they were on. What did you go through to get to that end product? How did you use AI? Did you use AI intelligent? And now we can open the door. We can say, hey, it's a tool. Use it, but use it intelligently. Show us how you used it. What checks did you engage to make sure that what you were getting back from AI wasn't like that picture? See, this picture looks totally different to me.
Could I
So
say
that kind of stuff.
storytelling?
Yep.
Storytelling has never been. There are some things that AI cannot replace, and your ability to storytell and convey what you know authentically.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Umber, your startup challenge, your Dragons Den concept, kids are going to be demonstrating their knowledge. Benivin, how has storytelling and your startup helped you in your schoolwork when it comes to um, the personalization and ability to convey what you know and your mindset?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a startup and you're pitching to customers, investors, things like that, you have to make sure that you have a good story. You have to have good storytelling skills. So I actually do apply that in school as well because we have these things called internal assessments. It's a multiple month-long project that we do, and we present one paper at the end to our teacher. But in between that, we have interviews where we actually talk about what we're doing, what was our process, what kind of research are we doing to get to this final result. So teachers are now using that to make sure that we're not just relying on AI to write our whole essay for us, but instead making sure they can interview us and talk about it and like ask in-depth questions to make sure they understand our thought process. So having those storytelling abilities does help with showing that you have the engagement in the actual work you've done.
Thank you for that. Umber, over to you from a learning environments perspective and creating the right conditions, not only for personalization, but to support student well-being and helping them become confident learners and right and inclusive, right?
Mhm.
There's always that one student who wants to put up their hand and answer every single question you
Mhm.
ask, but that's not what it's about in
Right.
this, modern day of learning in the age of AI.
I think this is an excellent question, right? When I'm hearing you, I'm really reflecting on these projects and how they have become start to finish so successful. I think it is a journey, like you said, Steve, right? It is the process, and being able to not only be involved as the adult in the room and taking that step back, but explicitly walking through all these stages and vocalizing them and really modeling the reflection pieces and what you're noticing, right? So for to answer your question, my big umbrella of this project wasn't supposed to be the entrepreneurship. It was storytelling. That was my proposal this year in the beginning of the year, and then I divvied that up into two sections. One, who are we? So really reflecting on our identities, our learning style, and our basically our equity literacy piece, and doing that through community circles, doing that through vocabulary, doing that through equitable practices, doing that through digital citizenship, right? So doing that and understanding and reclaiming their narrative and their story and their journey. And then the second part was, who are we becoming? Which now branched off to a really big entrepreneurship program, right? So how do we build that confidence? I think it goes back to relationships. It goes back to connection. I have a very strong professional relationship with them. For example, I even developed a leadership committee called event planning. Because Robert, if you know me, I'm all about planning these big expos and events. So I really told them, even today, they met with me at lunchtime right before our meeting. And I said, you guys are the leaders. What do you want to do? What do you see doing? How are you going to put together this proposal that now our leaders have to approve? They were in the beginning of this journey in September. When the kids are building their confidence and their leadership, they often come to the adult to ask questions. Is this okay? Right? When we talk about innovation and AI, if it's not the adult, then it would be the AI. Right? Is this okay? Should I do this? So that dependency piece, gradually, like, you eliminate that piece, right? So event planning from the beginning to now today, where I had 2 grade 8 students sit down and build a contract that we're going to be sending to community partners, and they're confident in doing that. They are looking at every single perspective, every liability piece, their language, their communication. So being able to build those relationships where kids can openly talk about it with you, and then therefore see their own success, see their own growth, what they started with and where they're at. And I think that is something that I'm very proud of when I watch them, and sometimes when I talk about the leaders that have grown right in front of me, I tell my husband, who's a non-teacher, and he said, "Are you sure these kids are grade 8?" And I'm like, "Yes, they are," because they just wanted this opportunity to lead. They wanted the opportunity to do, to be, and I think when you do that consistently and you're explicit about it, um, they're so proud of themselves. So that therefore becomes their story, right? Even right now, we're doing a lot of research with entrepreneurship and their businesses, but the end result is we're going to spend 3 weeks just their oral pitching, their branding, right? So we also need to keep in mind that we cannot rush that. That has to, you have to spend that time in that journey. So when we do get to that point, and now that they've had all this confidence and this hands-on experiences and trial and error, that pitching phase of our entrepreneurship, that is when we will use AI, right? And how do we perfect that? How do we take our work and build and make it the best work ever? So I thought this was a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, remarkable. Thank you so much for that. The results of the last poll that we did speaks to a lot of concerns around using AI ethically and responsibly. And KPMG did a study that inspired our C21 micro credential, and the study found that 73% of students were using AI. 77% want to know how to use it responsibly and equitably. And, the poll question showed that educators are equally concerned about that. And that inspired this. You're getting a sneak peek at it. It's created with AI. We have 5 modules, and it's really focusing on our 7 C's, integrating AI into our 7 C's to help kids understand how to use AI in an ethical, responsible way. So with that, how can we ensure that AI?
Actually, Robert, sorry,
Yeah,
can I just jump in here
yeah,
with these seven C's? Because you and I, of course, were big seven C people before AI.
yeah,
This was always seen as, something we need to work on in education to get
yeah.
beyond knowledge and really focus on
Right.
these skills of success. I now argue these are more important than they
Hmm.
ever were. As we
Right.
look ahead and try to think, what can we do for our students to prepare them for success? We don't know what the future is going to look like. We don't know what the job
Right.
landscape is going to look like, but we know these are the skills that will
Hmm.
help a student negotiate this uncertain future. So I think making these front
Okay.
and center and contextualizing them in AI learning, as you guys are doing now, is fantastic and really timely and relevant now.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's about those durable skills that we talk about that they're not soft skills, they're durable, they're essential. We have Fahad is a co-op student here from Dufferin Peel, and he's doing entrepreneurship. He's doing business operations. We have him at the main desk here at the Mindshare Workspace, and he's mastered digital skills. He uses his mobile phone to create social media posts with videos, and a lot of schools and provinces and districts are and states are banning mobile phones. It's contextual. It's got to be purposeful. How do you use them, responsibly? We shouldn't be banning things because, it's about giving kids agency and it's about self-regulation. I think you'll agree to that. And so when it comes to, these essential skills, critical thinking, communication, and creativity, etc., how do we avoid weakening these skills? We have to be mindful of it, but how do we could easily weaken these skills if we don't instill them? So that therein lies the challenge. Vinivan, you've been very observant and quiet, so I'm going to pass the baton over to you next. From your perspective, what would you like to see as a student? Because student voice really matters more than ever before.
Student voice in terms of AI. I think definitely there is a big gap between teachers. So as some of you were saying from before, one teacher would be like, "Yeah, use AI for this. We want to see you do this faster and more effectively." While another teacher would be like, "You can't touch AI at all. If you do it, you'll get an automatic zero." So having some kind of standardized way for teachers to implement AI in their classrooms, making sure that it's not subjective enough for students to be like, you're cheating, and instead have a rubric sort of, or another category on a rubric, because right now we do have some version of the 7Cs on our grading rubrics for how we complete our tasks. So having maybe AI use as another one of them is, I know it's not a C, but yeah, having AI use and responsible and ethical AI use as one of the categories for grading is a pretty big.
I think Dr. Jordan's had some thoughts on that as well. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I just think that's an absolutely great idea. So, rather than saying don't use I think we got to get better as educators saying how are you using AI, and really helping them to understand how to use AI well, but then asking for that back. And again, I think asking students more about the process they went through than the product they created. There's more information, and really that's where the learning is happening, right? That is the prospect where we've thrown them into some complex challenge, and now we're watching them kind of negotiate that challenge. And there's so much to learn from that, and we can have AI as part of that as we go through.
Umber, thoughts, Umber?
Yes, absolutely. I think I can see that because a few months ago, even last year, I was somebody who um, didn't know how I felt about AI because it was so new and so fresh, right? So a lot of that is the unknown, in my personal professional opinion, right? So how are we as educators continuing to build our capacity? And that can be through professional learning. That could be like, I know PDSB, for example, as a lot of you heard at the summit, we are one of the first boards to come up with AI guidelines, right? So I know they're going to be rolling that out. So we also are a fortunate board where we have an ed tech department. So a lot of these grants and a lot of these opportunities, like, we're going through that department to support us. So I think it's on its way, but I do agree that we need to openly discuss it. We need to openly ask those questions. We need to definitely hear student voice. I don't think it's something that we should be eliminating at all, because in the real world where the future is at, we're going to need these tools to help us. So where is that middle ground? And that can only be achieved through discussion and open conversations.
And if I could
that.
just highlight it
Yeah.
again, like Umber mentioned the challenge, like for a lot of teachers, AI is this big hairy thing, and how do I bring it into the classroom? And it's a little intimidating, a little mysterious. But again, Dell and Mindshare together have been working with a lot of teachers to create these use cases. And you can find, Robert gave a link to it earlier. I think for a lot of teachers, this is a good way in to find a use case, something some other teacher has tried and sort of honed down a process that meets some goal. And if that's a goal that you share, then that can be a great way to bring it in. And somebody's already kind of done the creative work of thinking about how to make it happen. And you can just borrow that. And I think that is a really good way to start in a classroom, and to start with confidence, to start where, you understand what's going on and what you're doing as a teacher. So those use cases, I think, are super valuable. The kind of stuff Unber's doing to share that with others so that they can, pick up and follow in her footsteps. I think we need leaders, but we also need followers now. We need teachers who are happy to say, yeah. I don't want to be the one coming up with all these crazy ways of using AI, but I'm willing to find one I like and bring it into my classroom.
Well, let's thank you so much for that. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists. We're going to open it up. So let's give a round, like a healthy round of virtual applause, because we do have that capability with these tools. And we're going to put out another poll, and then we're going to pivot to an open discussion, and we're going to encourage our audience to chime in, as I'm sure they have some thoughts. I'd love to invite our panelists to jump in and respond to one another, and encourage educators in the audience, virtual audience, to drop a note, a question in the chat. And so here's a question for everyone joining us. Okay, the final poll, challenge participation. Would you consider participating in the Student AI for Wellbeing Challenge with your students? We'll give a moment to generate the results there. We're launching on Tuesday, as I mentioned earlier, with the Dell Education Summit partners. So this is our soft launch, if you will. And so we've got some interest, and you can definitely get more insight. I think we have a QR code that Mar will share with us. And looking forward to launching that on Tuesday. Thank you for Steve, for the reference to the C21 use case project, of which you have one. What is yours, and how is yours coming along? Because you're part of phase 3.
Yeah, so mine is really much focused on that, using AIs to do oral assessments of learning, something I've been doing in my 1,800 student class, which I know sounds a little ridiculous.
Wow.
But it's actually, that's why I embrace technology so much, to try to get deep learning even with that scale. But yeah, I find this really exciting. I think imagine, just for a moment, imagine we could allow the student to choose the language of assessment. Imagine we could allow them to kind of configure who was assessing them. Who would you feel most comfortable being assessed by? And then creating an assessment situation where they can really show themselves at their best, really feel comfortable, really. And I think AI can get us there. I think we can assess learning more holistically and more equitably. And that's sort of the challenge one of the challenges that we're trying to get to in my lab. I'll be talking about that a little bit on Tuesday as part of the Dell session as well.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Okay, so folks in the audience, feel free to chime in with the questions. I have a question. I always taught my kids, and I have 3 kids, and my babies are grown adults. They hate when I call them babies, but and 2 are getting married. The twins are getting married this summer. But I always taught them, have a question. Always be prepared with one question. And so my question is around opportunity or concern you see when it comes to AI and student well-being in your classroom. What is where is this going? Where are we going to get consistency when you referenced, well, one teacher says they can use it, one teacher says you can't? What's the solution there? Are faculties of education, do they have a role to play? Guidelines from the province don't exist in Ontario, I don't believe. School districts guidelines. The upskilling piece is astronomically huge, and that's part of this webinar, is to help upskill and provide knowledge for educators. Umber, what are your thoughts? I like to say it takes a village, a digital village, to raise a child, but also to help upskill educators and in the next generation, and the more mature teachers need to embrace this because it's part of your professional activities and learning.
Absolutely. You said it. We have directives that we have to follow. And part of that is meeting students where they're at and have the obligation to continue growing and building our own teacher capacity. So we also have to be realistic. And go with the times. I don't think this is something that's going to go away, and it shouldn't, because there's proper ways of using it and supporting our students and the future, right? We need to do everything that we can to prepare our students for high school, for university, for their workforce. So we have to really try to continue to provide those opportunities for educators to learn, to engage in, right? Like, for example, in PDSB, we have a lot of AI workshops. So I think it should be mandatory for everyone to continue learning. And I think that will lessen some of the gaps that we have where one teacher is not using it and the other is.
Right.
And I would also like to empower the students and families to speak up on this, because we have to teach our students how to use this properly to help them. Right? That saying, work smarter, not harder, all the time. So if we are using it appropriately, then we should be able to continue that use to really balance that out.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's my thoughts on this.
Brilliant. Ben Ivan, over to you for a student perspective on how are we going to solve this? Maybe that could be part of your startup. And everyone pivots, startups pivot. I'm sure you've pivoted. So perhaps we're inspiring you to create another solution or a spin-off company with services on upskilling on AI for teachers.
I mean, I work pretty closely with the Peel Innovation Advisory team, like the EdTech team and everything. And we do have some work on the AI guidelines with Peel. But what I think is more necessary is the Ontario level, or even Canadian federal level, having an updated education system where we have AI integrated deeply into the curriculum instead of just added on as another unit or just a set of guidelines that teachers follow. Having it actually be part of the assessment criteria, because right now I think we have communication, evaluate, like analysis, things like that. So having AI used and like making sure it's accurately identified instead of being just another part of the analysis is important.
Well said. Dr. Jordan's, over to you for
I think the piece I would add to this is I think we always have to start by realizing that teachers have been through a lot over the last little while. From the pandemic on, you get through the pandemic and all the stresses they had to manage then, and then they get hit with generative AI, and then people like me and Vinavin are saying it should be in every class. Everybody should be using AI. That's a big ask for a lot of teachers, some of whom aren't very technical themselves. And so I've been pushing this notion of intrapreneurship that I think fits a lot of our mindsets well. And the idea there is, like, I see 15 people attending here. My bet is those 15 people are more leaning into AI. And then every one of them probably knows about 6 or 7 other teachers who are not interested. So what I always suggest is find those people among us who are interested in the potential and empower them, give them the space, the time, and the resources to explore what they can do with AI. But don't expect that of everybody. Let that first group find the use cases. Let them establish the things that work, and then try to get those use cases to flow to the other teachers in a way that's less demanding of them. Like they can be a much more constricted use case that's, here to solve a very specific learning challenge that teacher kind of embraces. So then they can learn about not the big hairy AI, but this little AI that's part of this learning process. And I think if we could empower those entrepreneurs to feed now the rest of the education system, maybe we could more reasonably try to get AI in a lot more classes.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So inspiring. Ivan, I cannot believe you're in grade 11. You're so mature and thoughtful and present so well. So you have a great future ahead of you. Perhaps we'll hire you, or you can hire me for your startup when I'm in semi-retirement mode, perhaps. We need a call to action as we begin the new chapter in Canada Schools of the Future Challenge. We invite teachers across the country to join us. The challenge is more about more than just participating. It's about helping students strengthen their learning ownership, improving focus and digital well-being, use AI ethically and responsibly, and design human-centered solutions for the future. So once again, I invite you to step forward. Launch your Schools of the Future Ambassador opportunity. Bring this challenge to your students, champion innovation in your school, and help shape the future of Canada. So in closing, before we wrap up, I want to sincerely thank our panelists for sharing their insights and expertise. And a special thank you to our partners, Dell Technologies, our lead sponsor, C21 Canada, Nelson, Logix, Code to Learn, among a number of others. We deeply appreciate the commitment to innovation, student success, and the future of education. Please take a couple of minutes to complete the survey via the link or the QR code. Thank you again. And being National Literacy Day, what a special day it is, and we're going to build on this. We look forward to seeing many of you at our official launch on Tuesday at the Dell Technologies Education Summit. Have a wonderful afternoon for all of you, for your students and every day. And in closing, together we ensure the future of AI is human-centered, student-driven, and grounded in well-being. And my name is Robert Merdlanchi. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve